Hi, and welcome to Tuesday, week one's second lesson, which is reading and our focused writing of report writing. So when we go into Edstudio, just a little reminder, we're done with that one, that there's also the EPIC reading activities that are up there each day. So if you want to keep a journal and just write in what you've read, what video you've watched, or what you've read along with. And if you do the activity for today, which is the 21st, you use a dictionary to look up a meaning of 3 new words. So find 3 new interesting words. You can even use them out of the spelling, the extension words, phenomenal, and do a good definition on that. Don't forget maybe to look up your etymology as well. And when you go in and you look up your etymology of a word, you click the down arrow and it's got the definition there. Okay, but the actual reading lesson that we go into for week 1 is that one on the Sydney Harbour Bridge, and we read that yesterday. I'm not going to read it again today if you want to go back and have a look at that, but you probably should take some time and just go through and read it again to get that into your memory. So Tuesday's thinking task, and if you could please head it up. Tuesday, week 1, same as we do there, and then just up the top put in reading. Oop, I've written it in red. So head it up with your name. Oops. Like that, and just put that up the top when you photograph and send it in to me. That would be awesome. Okay, and we're going to go under the different headings today of remembering, understanding, applying, analysis, evaluating, and creating. And these are the 7 hats of thinking, if you haven't heard of that one. So let's have a look at what we need to do. So underneath that heading that you put up on the page, the first one that we're going to write up there is remembering. So we read it yesterday, so let's see if we can remember some things about it. So state the date that the Sydney Harbour Bridge was opened. That's our first one. So let's go back into the text. Do you remember which fact that was written under? Would it be the first fact? Would we go straight to the first fact that it was open? No, that one was more about where it was located and how it was built and what happened. So maybe the last fact. Let's go in there and have a look. Work commenced on the bridge. Almost 9 years to complete. Yep, and there it is. So I'm not going to tell you that one. I want you to find that. And underneath that, in a sentence, we always write in sentences. We're in grade 6 and we're getting ready for high school. We're going to state the date. Don't just state it. Actually give me that whole information. The Sydney Harbour Bridge commenced in this date, took 9 years to build, and was opened on this date, and write the date down. Give me a nice sentence. Okay, our next heading is understanding. So when we go in and we look at a text and we skimmed and scanned it yesterday, we read it the first time and we do what we call a recall. We try and remember as much facts about it. And as we're recalling it, we may have to go back in and read it again. And that's when we get a deeper understanding about what we've read. So we're going to draw a timeline of key dates in the bridge's history. Let's have a little look. And I'll just blow this up a little bit more. Let's have a little look of which ones, and if you've got this printed out, you can highlight it, of the dates that are here. No, all of these are facts. The only dates are here. So your timeline, and it goes on because the timeline doesn't finish. So the first one is when it's commenced, so you're going to write it there, and you would write under there, building of Sydney Harbour Bridge commences, and then over here when it finished and when it opened. Just have a skim through and make sure you've picked out all the dates. So by looking for those dates and reading through that again, you're getting a deeper understanding about what you've read. Then the next part is applying. So we're going to head that up and write applying on our page. And applying says draw a scale diagram of the Sydney Harbour Bridge using measurements in fact 2. Okay, so let's have a look. In Fact 2, it says the arch span of the Sydney Harbour Bridge is 503 metres, the arch span, so from the top to the bottom. Okay, and then the top of the arch is 134 metres above sea level. The clearance for shipping is 49 metres. Okay, so if we're going to draw this in our books, and this is under applying, so we're applying the knowledge that we know to a diagram to explain it. So the first thing we're going to do is draw the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Now, as we're drawing it, we're obviously not going to draw it real size. So we have to think about, if we're drawing it to scale, what are we going to say that scale is? Is it a centimetre to every kilometre? Is it a centimetre to every metre? Well, let's draw it first and we'll have a look. So the easiest thing to do, I think, first of all, let's have a look at the picture, is to draw those. Now, remember, I'm not a very good artist. Those pylons in the background. And we had extra information about those pylons, didn't we? They told us that a certain height of how big those pylons are, and they're 89 metres. So I'm going to pop that in. So from there to there is 89 metres. So maybe 1 centimetre, that would be 8 centimetres, wouldn't it? Now, that'd be nearly 9 centimetres. So each centimetre is to 1 metre. So maybe that's our scale. So 1 centimetre is to, that's our ratio, 1 metre. We'll keep going and see how this looks. And I apologise for my drawing. I'm terrible. And then the bridge goes through these and down onto the road. You can draw this much better than me. And then we've got our bridge that actually goes along over the water. And then we've got our arch. Now our arch goes way up above those pylons, doesn't it? Okay, so let's get those measurements from Fact 2. The arch span of the Sydney Harbour Bridge is 503 metres. So in here, I'm going to do 503 metres across there. Now if I ruled that, would that roughly be 5 centimetres? Maybe a little bit too big, so I could rub it out and fix it up. And the second point is the top of the arch is 134 metres above sea level. So maybe I might use a different colour from here. So the top to the sea, and I'm going to use blue here, I'm getting creative. There's the sea going across the bottom there. Can you see that? And so from the top of the arch to the sea is, how long did they say? 500. Top of the arch is 134 metres above sea level. So this one here, 134 metres above. And then the last one was the clearance for the shipping. So from here to the sea is 49 metres. Now you can see this skill's called applying. You can see how I've had to go back into that text and find that information, think about it, especially the scale, and apply it to the picture that I've drawn. And that's a reading skill. You've got to have a deep understanding of the text that you've read and be able to think that out logically to apply it. So have a go at that. That's a really good skill. Okay, let's go back over here again. Sorry for my picture. And I'll just hold it up one more time so you can have a good look. And I can't wait to see your pictures, which I'm sure are going to be a lot better than mine. And I might just reduce this writing down again. Okay, then the next one's evaluating. Rank the 10 facts from the text in order from the most important to the least important. So you just start at the one at the top and say least important, 10 to the most important, and just go through and rank the fact boxes. You don't have to write them out again, just go 1 to 10. If you think that box 5 is really important because that's the foundation of the building of the Sydney Harbour Bridge, a pair of concrete pylons, and you think 5 is the most important, not as important as opening the bridge, then put that down on number 8, up near number 10. If you think the opening of the bridge is the most important, put that as number 10. What's the least important one that we'd probably put at number 1? This one, actually, is it number 1, do you think? Maybe when the Sydney Harbour Bridge opened, it cost 6 pence for a car to cross. Maybe that's not so important to know how much it is to cross the bridge. Okay, and the next one is creating. Adapt the Sydney Harbour Bridge by changing one aspect of its design and draw and label your adapted bridge. So this was made, we're now in 2020, and it opened in 1932, so just under 100 years old. So if you were in charge of designing this bridge, how would you make it better? Maybe you would make it wider and have more lanes. Maybe you would have a cyclist riding over the top so they don't go on the road at all. But head it up creating and draw me a picture and just label it of how you've designed it to make it better. That was really good. I enjoyed that, and tomorrow we'll jump onto our comprehension task. Right, now, the other bit of writing that we need to do, that was our reading task, but we need to go back to our English focus. And our English focus is newspaper reports. That's what we're doing this term. Last term we made a poster, a travel poster, and we learned all persuasive techniques. So we're learning how to understand how a newspaper report is written, and we'll have a go at doing some ourselves. So this first page under our focus writing says how to read a news report. So what I would like you to do is do your own note-taking. We learned this in class with history. So could you please head up your page? You can just keep it running underneath. Head it up with newspaper report writing. And I want you to take your own notes about what we're reading from this page here. If you can, print it out. If not, you know what, it's actually better for you to take notes, because you need to get good at doing that when you go into high school. You're not always going to be copying directly from the board, and you need to be able to listen to who's teaching you, work out what's the most important thing, and highlight and circle or take your own notes. So just underneath, a news report. And I want you to just, and remember we said you could draw shapes, you could do whatever you want, but these, you're going to have to know how to do this, so however you want to take your notes about what we're talking about. So I might do my cloud first in my book, and I might write purpose, because every single genre of writing, every single type of writing has a purpose. Is it persuasive? Is it to inform? Is it to entertain? What is the purpose of a news report? So a news report informs readers about current or upcoming events. So in there, I might do a bullet point and write inform. And another really important thing it said, it informs us about current events. So it's to do with what's happening in the world at the moment. And what's happening in the world at the moment that's a current event? I'm not even going to say it. Okay, often news reports are about stories that are relevant and interesting for the reader. If you think that's important, you can pop it in or do another cloud in any colour you want. These are your notes. Send them to me for stars though. And news reports focus on human interest or drama stories about ordinary people in challenging or devastating circumstances. So you'll notice at the moment, which is why we're doing distance learning, that when you go onto the news, and I mainly watch BBC News, and you'll get a lot of human stories on there, things that are happening to people. Sometimes they're really great and acts of kindness. Someone's taking care of an old lady up the road, or someone's rescued an animal that someone can't look after anymore. And sometimes, you know, they're sad stories. So it tells us, it challenges us and tells us devastating circumstances about ordinary people. Okay, so characteristics of a news report. I would put this up as a separate shape, a star or a cloud, and I'd write characteristics of a news report. And I'd write in there that there's 3. So bullet point those in there: events, sections, and inverted. So there's 3 characteristics of a news report when we look at it. So events. Events, news reports about important national or international events are usually printed on the first or second page of a newspaper. So if you just want to write in brackets or however you want to take your notes about what an event is. Sections. News reports are separated into different sections in a newspaper. Different sections can include local or city news, arts and entertainment, business, sports, comics, families and lifestyles. Now, newspapers aren't as popular as what they were when I was a kid, and even I don't hardly look at a newspaper at all, but I go online, and a lot of times the online news is set up very similar to a newspaper. And what you'll see is just what this is saying, the sections of it. The big international stories are on the first or second page. The big national stories that affect Australia, also on the first or second page. And then it's split up into local news, what's happening with the arts and the entertainment and sports and business and lifestyle, and you can pretty well take it out and put it into the different sections of the news. Now, inverted, that's interesting. What does that mean? Most news reports follow a similar structure and contain the same components, which is this, okay? In most cases, a news report is written like an inverted pyramid. Inverted means that it has been turned upside down in an upside down triangle. The most important information appears first, and then the least important information is last. So what they're saying is an inverted triangle. A normal triangle would be like that, but this is an inverted one. It's upside down. So at the top of the newspaper, the most important information appears first. So this is the most important information, what's happening in the world, what's happening nationally, and they will put as much detail into that. Probably even one of those stories might take up a page or half a page. And then the rest of those stories, local, entertainment, sport, right down into the comics, all layer down. Okay, so the front of the page starts big with all that important world and national news, and then it filters down local, sport, comic, until down here. Not that important. Classifieds. Okay, now features of a news report. This is really important, and I'd put a cloud and write features of a news report. Please don't forget you can pause me as you go. Quick sip. The features of a news report are the headline, the title of the report, what's called a byline, the name of the writer and location of the story. So at the top you'll have the title. So in Australia at the moment, Flattening the Curve. Who's written that? Tom Brady. He's the author. Then the lead paragraph, the first paragraph, it answers the who, what, where, when, why and how. So it gets straight into that first detail. So if it was going to be about flattening the curve, after the author's name, in bold writings, it'd have something like Australia succeeds in flattening the curve. Okay, the lead paragraph, don't forget, answers those who, what, when, why, how questions. And we've talked about that a lot in HASS. They're our main umbrella questions about a topic that tell us straight away the main parts of the story. Additional paragraph, the least important information, where they can include quotes and be included. And the caption appears under the photo and explains what is in the photo. Now, this is exactly the same as the advertising posters that we did. And don't forget, we learned that when you write for advertisement or for a paper, it's called copy. We don't call it a text, we call it a copy. Now, I hope that helped. That's something that we'll go back to. And if we're in the classroom, we'd put that up on a huge poster on our learning wall. And now you've got that in your books because you've done that yourself. So here are some instructions that we need to do. This is a lesson here that you need to open up like Waterworld and save it, because when we're finished doing it, you're going to put it into the Dropbox and send it to me down here on the page. See that? And you can write in there a little message just saying what we learnt about, what you thought about, and post that, and it'll go onto the blog, which is an excellent thing to do because then you've authored something. There's lots of upcoming writers in 6L, and the more you write and respond to things and criticise things online and normally, the more you're improving your writing skills, and it's so powerful, especially in this world. Look at us at home, you know, responding and writing online, so important. Okay, so you've downloaded that, so when we finish that, we're going to drop it. Now, we're not going to get all of that done today, but we're going to have a quick look. As we go through, oh, I've lost it. I'll do it again. As we go through this lesson, it'll tell us to go to the glossary or to go to the shark fins. Now, unfortunately, these links on this page don't work, and this is why they've been popped down here. So we'll read along, and as we get to it, we'll come back into Ed Studio and open these links up. Okay, so let's have a look. I've lost it again. Where did it go? Oh, I've opened heaps of them. It's a PDF, not a Word document, which is why the links won't open. Okay, so in English, we're exploring news reports, and we had a really good look at that. And we know now that the purpose of a news report is to inform, and we're understanding how to interpret and analyse. Such important comprehension skills for grade 6 and high school. Really when you read something, you've got to be able to understand it, interpret it, and then you have to be able to analyse it. You have to have an opinion. That's how you understand the world. Analyse information and ideas in news reports and understand text structure of the news reports. Well, we know that. We just did it. Okay, these are all our resources that are attached. And now in your book, as we go through, I'll just get you to head it up. You can keep going where we are. News reports. And then any writing that we'll do, we'll put underneath. In this unit, you're learning about news reports in the media. There we go. We don't have to read about him. So the first video is an introduction to news reports in the media, and it introduces it. So what I'll get you to do now is go back into Ed Studio, if it's up, and I want you to click on Introduction to News. Oh, that looks like a PDF, doesn't it? Oh, there it is, and it should come up like that, and I just want you to watch that video by clicking on that. I'm not going to play it now, but if you can click on that and just go through and watch that. I'm going to turn that one off. Okay, so just pause me and go through and watch that introduction news reports. Okay, I hope that gave you a bit of an idea into it. The next one is the glossary sheet and the terms. Now, this is normally what we would be doing our spelling on for this week, the glossary and the words that we need to know for news reports. So let's have a bit of a look at those words now and make sure we've got a fairly good idea of all the words that we would use for a news report. So adverb groups, groups of words that describe a verb, walk slowly, very clearly, and we would use a lot of those in a news report because we would be reporting what people are saying and what they are doing. The way he spoke, the way he moved, the way she stood up and helped somebody, or just describing people's actions. Analyse, we would definitely have that as a spelling word because that is what we're doing when we're reporting news. Analytical images. So in a newspaper report, we're not just sticking in any old image. We're putting in factual text and we're putting in pictures that represent ideas. These images can be diagrams, maps, labelled images, tables, graphs and timelines. That is so current for what's happening now because the first thing when you go into the news at the moment is you get charts of everything that's happening with you know what, I'm not going to say it, and graphs, and we're living our lives by that. Everybody's watching to see in the news if that curve's flattening. Biases, so when we're reading the news straight away, we're reading something about Trump and he's going, isn't that beautiful, isn't that great? He's got a bias to himself. His main goal is to promote himself. So we know, listening to him, we're not going to believe everything that he says. We know that he has a bias and he wants to continue on as the president. So clauses. So the main clause is a group of words which include a verb and can stand alone and make a single meaning. So that means a clause is a part of a sentence. So in a sentence it could have, the world was shocked today to see the statistics, however they are improving over time. So that first part of that sentence, the world was shocked today to see the statistics, even though it's joined to another clause, that's the main clause that stands alone and explains to us what's happening in the sentence. And a subordinate clause is a group of words which support a verb and is introduced using a subordinating conjunction or a relative pronoun. A subordinate clause is also known as a dependent clause because it relies on a main clause. So that second part of that sentence depends on the first part to make sense. First part can stand alone. Cohesion means that it flows on and it makes sense. And not only do you have to have cohesion in a sentence, which is why I say think about your sentences before you write them, you have to have cohesion in your text. You can't be jumping around. So in a newspaper report, the cohesion is that the heading's up there nice and clear. We can see who's written it. And the reason why the author has to put their name underneath, because if they're offensive, or if they say something that's not true, you can complain about the reporter by linking it back to the newspaper company. Okay, so that's why they have to own it. And also you can't copy it and then say you've written it. And then they've got their main paragraph, which tells us very quickly about it and then filters down. That's the cohesion in a story. It's not jumping around everywhere. Editing is everything in all your work, even your writing today. When you've written something, you should never go full stop, that's it. You should quickly go back over and read it. It takes about 10 seconds. Evaluative language, we have gone on about that so much this year. How good is something? How bad is something? Do we like it? Newspaper reports are full of evaluative language. An important occasion. Significant results, and here they've given the example of lovely girl. And of course we have to be able to tell the difference between fact and opinion. So when we get those charts and those diagrams, we know that they're fact. They're maths or science that's been put in there and which is different from an opinion which expresses a belief or how we feel or a point of view. You know, I don't agree with the politics in America. It's not very humanitarian, meaning it doesn't really care about people. Okay, a lot of these things down here we know. Let's go through them really quickly. Formality of language, you have to keep your language formal. Intended target, if you're writing a newspaper report about something complex, you're not writing it for children. Language features, we know all about this. We talked a lot about it last term. So I'll leave that there, but basically the way that you're writing it. Modality, we're talking about how great something is, you must do it. Narrative voice, the person telling the story has to have a certain tone and express a point of view. And news is information about recent significant events. Our noun groups, which are groups of nouns that go together that explain what's happening in the story. Objective language, now objective meaning that there's no bias. You're just telling the story as it is, the facts. Online reporting, and there are many different features used on a website, headings and subheadings, font size and size, styles and size, graphics, the pictures, audio clips, menus, navigation tools, search functions and hyperlinks, we know all about those, and point of view. And we're coming to the end now. The position or the point of view of the reader. Proofreading, which is like editing, but you're going through and making sure that it's cohesive and makes sense. The purpose of the text, which we know. The question and answer relationship. So if you're going to ask a rhetorical question in a text, that it follows on that the answer makes sense. And you can have a little read of that. Don't forget to pause this and have a read as I'm explaining it. Radio news report, and this explains sentences. We know this, we've gone over this. A simple sentence, I walk my dog. A compound sentence is when you add in as, but, or, and a complex sentence is those wonderful joining words, however, although, because, and we try and use those. The structure, which we talked about straight up. Subjective language, when you're emotional. That was a terrible event, it upset me. The subject matter is the main idea. The television news report, the tone, and the tone of the voice if you're calm and friendly. or you watch a lot of American news and it's very intense and sometimes angry. The verb groups used to describe something and the verbs, and that's all the words. We would have gone through and done that in our spelling, but now we've had a quick look at that now, and have a read through that as well. Okay, so let's go back into our lesson. Prior knowledge about news reports. As I say to you, our prior knowledge is very important. We've all read news, we're all looking at news now. We know how news is generally set up, and though we're learning about news reports now, we're using that information that we've had previously. Okay. Think while you read. Is the answer in the book or in your head? This is the prior knowledge that they're referring to, that you're thinking back and relating it back to what you already know. Have a little read of this. I'm not going to go through this now. Underneath news report, I want you to then go to this section here. So we're going to use information that we already know. And I want you to write me one sentence, and when it's question 4, so put a 4 there. What are the different media platforms that exist for sharing news? So we have a platform is where the news, how can we access it? So we have an actual newspaper. What else do we have? What's another platform? The internet. Where else can we go to get our news? We can switch on the radio. On our phone, we might have so I want you to go through and think of another 2 platforms that you can put in there, but at least write that one down. And then for the next one, that's 4A, that one, this one's B. I want you to give me a sentence on what the purpose of the news is. We know that it's to inform, but also put in there what we've discussed about what it's actually informing. Is it informing us about cooking? What is it informing? So give me a good sentence, make sure you proofread it and have capitals. Okay, I think that might do us for today. We've gone through and done a lot there. So we're up to 4. So tomorrow we're going to kick off on page 4 up here. And we'll start with the tone, formality, language, modality. We'll go through and talk about some of those ideas and do some of these activities. So we're basically up to page 4. Okay, excellent. That was a pretty intensive bit of learning about report writing, but that's the genre that we're doing at the moment. So excellent. Next one I'll put on is maths.